They're all having conversations.
Nerd Reactor, roll out.
What's up, everybody? John Nguyen here from Nerd Reactor. I'm here with Scott Gershin, sound designer extraordinaire. He's worked on Transformers 1. We're here at the Sound Lab at a Keyword Studios.
At
right?
Keyword Studios, yeah.
There we go. And so far I see a lot of monitors. This is like probably the most I've seen in the audio studio. But we can talk about that later on. But here, right now, let's start off with I don't know, we can go to your past history on sound design. How'd you get into it?
Oh, goodness. You know, you always wonder when you start what the journey is going to be. Well, now that I'm so far in the journey, it looks like a straight line. At the time, you think you're just all over the place. You know, for me, it started with the music. And I started programming synthesizers for a lot of session players in town. And instead of doing French horns, clavinets, and all the things they wanted, I started doing lasers and spaceships and just really cool sounds. That led in, interestingly enough, in the early days, I worked on Transformers the cartoon.
We're talking about the 80s one?
The 1980s one, absolutely. Oh. So it's kind of a nice bookend, you know?
Yeah.
And since then, I just kind of grew it. I did a TV show called Beauty and the Beast with Linda Hamilton and Ron Perlman. Then moved on to Honey, Shrunk the Kids. And my first 4 movies, so I was one of the first guys to use a computer, which makes me sound ancient, but it's really, you know, it wasn't that long ago. So my first 4 movies put me on the map in the first 2 years: Honey, Shrunk the Kids, Born on the 4th of July, Glory, and Still Magnolia. And I was one of the first guys to do it digitally for what I did. So that put me on the map in a really big way. And then it led to probably over 100 movies now, and it's still going.
Yeah. So there's a thing when you're doing it digitally. Was there like people in the industry where they're working on the analog stuff? They're like, well, Scott, what is he doing? And digital is taking over. No.
Well, you know what? It seemed to me a normal progression coming from music.
Yeah.
Things that I could control, things that I can manipulate. In the day, it was all mag, so it was pre-recorded, and all you did was you sunk it up. Then you let the mixer kind of make whatever it was going to be. And you were really limited by how many tracks you could have. So for me, I started doing everything in 24 tracks. So I could do 3 of them many times. So, which sounds like a lot. But now, my movies, I'm going in with 1,000, 2,000 tracks.
It's, I've been like seeing some different, like audio designers. I've been looking at their tracks, like so many. Because like when I edit with Premiere, Adobe Premiere, so it's just 4 tracks maybe, that's it. And I'm looking at that screen right there, that just scares me.
Well, you know, the thing is, it's not that we have 2,000 tracks at once, because that would be crazy.
Yeah.
But what it is we have categories. So in looking at Transformers 1, you've got the transformation sounds. You've got the movements and the footsteps, another set of sounds. You've got the Autobot race. You know, on Cybertron, you have all these categories, and if you break them into categories, they're much easier to mix. Then you got to remember we're no longer mono or stereo. Now we're Atmos. So now elements are going to be unique that are going to move. We call them objects, so we can move them around the theater. So now it's no longer a single note. You have to fill the whole room. So when you start breaking that up, it really gets easy to get into the 500. 1,000. And then they go, hey, can we break that sound up? Like the Transformer sound is really broken up into 2 categories. Each category has about 16 to 30 tracks. And one of them is the mechanical. You know, you want me to?
Yeah, let's play.
Hey, let me play you something. So the first one is. So that is the sound of metal combining together to create. Whoops. So what that's for is basically that's the sound of metal combining to create all the mechanisms coming into place during the transformations.
Yeah.
I call that organic. Now we're going to go to the signature. Now what's interesting about the approach on this show was Josh, who's the director, Josh Cooley, he really didn't want what was done before. He wanted a new spin, a new take. So he said, come up with your version. But at the same time, we knew that we had to stay within the Transformer universe. So if I went too far out, the audience would go, I don't know what that is, I don't recognize it. And working on a show that has such iconic sounds, I had to figure out how to do something new while doing something old.
Yeah.
So here's the signature sounds. So those are another example of the vocode, even there's no vocoders in this. And what's important is I wanted to give it a vocal quality. Ba-ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-da-ba.
Yeah.
Like it's having a conversation. So that gives it something a little different than what's been done maybe.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of the show which makes it so challenging is there used to be the 1980s, which is always in 5 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Let's roll.
The issue with that is they played it over and over and over. Well, in our Transformers 1, the transformation's speed is never the same. First of all, I've got 4 heroes, and they have to have their own unique sort of transformation sound. Then you've got the bad guys, and they have to have a darker Transformer sound. Some of them, instead of going will go or So now, every time they're transforming, there is no single set of notes.
So nothing is ever the same.
No.
Yeah.
So you got to create something unique and identifiable.
Yeah.
But that is malleable to change, to handle all the speeds of the animation.
So my question is, there's so many different sounds. How do you create it? What's the process behind that?
Fear. We spent a lot of time doing the organic, and the organic I understood from doing everything from Pinocchio to Pacific Rim. I understood how to do that.
Yeah.
Then at some point they were like, okay, we have to really go after the transformation sound. And to be honest, I did it in December, not December back. And I literally took a month. I just closed myself in a room and came up with it. And I said, I know I have this. I can figure this out pretty quickly. Then I realized I didn't.
Oh.
Yeah, I tried things that I thought were obvious vocoders.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was around in the day, I was trying to figure out what cool sounds they had in the day. What technologies. Then I needed to figure out how did I want to make it different. So I started off with synths, and what I ended up doing is a lot of that's guitars.
Guitars. From that.
Guitars and pedals, absolutely. I did that, and I used 2 synths. And basically, with lots of pedals and lots of outboard gear, came up with about 4 hours of material. And then I could break that up and say, okay, that's going to be for this bad character.
Mm-hmm.
And then this has got more funny, so it's going to be for B.
Yeah.
And the other part is D16 evolves the most in the movie because he becomes one of the characters that we know. Where, yeah, I don't want to give it away, but Pax, he evolves slightly, but D16 goes from being buddies. And really, what's interesting about this movie, it's a buddy movie.
Yeah.
It's about 2 friends who grow up and they experience the same challenge together, but they have different ways how they want to resolve it. Because there's the bad guy.
Yeah.
And they need to stop the bad guy. D16 feels that he needs to take him out. They need to kill him. Pax feels that he should be brought to justice. So you can kind of get an idea where this is going.
Yeah.
So what happens is it almost becomes a 3-way conflict. Where there's 2 groups going against the bad guy. And at the end it starts going against each other. Because they're so divided in partisanship. is that they, even though they want the same results, how they get it.
Yeah, I love these type of storylines because it's the villains, like, you care about them. You want the hero and the villain to just come back together like before. Because we've had a lot of great examples. For example, X-Men with Professor Rex and Magneto.
Yeah.
Megatron and Optimus Prime. So yeah, it keeps going.
And you know what's great is because they're not really. Optimus Prime is sort of the beginnings of an Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
And the beginnings of a Megatron. But what's interesting, and where I think this film has a lot of heart to it, is that even at the end, they look at each other for a moment to see who they were.
Yeah.
So it's like Megatron is like 80%. Optimus Prime is 80%. But then they do a flashback to when they were friends. And they still have a little glow, a little essence of who they were before they became the characters we know. And then B, which you can figure out who that's going to be, he's great because he can talk. And so he is a little bit of the comic relief throughout the show.
Whoa! I got a battle mask! It appeared with this guy! Knife hands? I have knife hands!
And then you've got Alita. And Alita's a wonderful character and really powerful and really strong. So she kind of runs the whole group. You know, when they're all like, can't figure it out. She's like, we're going this way. And they're like, okay, sure, yeah, fine.
And so, okay, you mentioned the guitars, right? Is there a way to demo that now? Just like how that becomes the sound that we hear now, like in the final product?
No.
No.
No, that was a massively complex setup.
Uh-huh.
And I did that in my other studio.
Ah.
But, you know, it's not, you know, I would, took many guitars, put them through different amps and then called an Axis FX3. And then do the multiple alternate tuning, drop D as well as super low, because I wanted to get a more aggressive angriness out of it. And I did different kind of amp settings based on the characters. So I would hit this, like a very heavy metal sound.
Mm-hmm.
Then what I did was I found a pedal, which was a phaser, to it. So then I used the ring modulator. They go so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that added the 5 layers.
Yeah.
So when I hit the guitar, after processing, I would put it through the phaser that gave it the sweep down, then the ring modulator, and then I would put it through a Foreman filter, which is a fancy way of saying like a vocal processor. So it's like ow, you know, and then I could actually play it. So I have this thing called the knob.
The knob.
The knob.
Okay.
On the Mac, and it's a brass knob, a giant knob, and I could plant it over anything on a computer, and I can move like a dial, like a dial, but I could do it and I can play it. So go, yeah. So now all of a sudden, I'm playing all the different aspects of the sound. To create what you heard, one of them was probably 8 or 9 steps. It wasn't just a... Yeah, you do this and you put it in and you go, I don't know, let me quickly tune that, let me fine tune that. Okay, ooh, I'm going to give it a vocal quality.
Yeah.
Or at times I was playing around with or whether 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can then start playing with speed games.
Mm-hmm.
I found that occasionally useful just to give it a little more musicality, a little more personality.
So there's a lot of tweaking that is involved
Massive.
in this, yeah. And so it's like at the end, how's it? I don't know if it's like a way for you to figure out like how do we reproduce this? Like you just know, like on the top of your head, like we can just do that, and then I'll tweak this here, and we'll get this like 100% every time.
Yeah, you know, it like I said, a lot of fear, and I love fear.
Uh-huh.
I love pure horror and fear, because what it does is it focuses me. I go, oh, yeah, I do this. Pen vocoder in, did this, and this, and went, oh, that's not it. Then it was like, uh-oh. Okay. Then I went and I was just thinking about it, and I do a lot of stuff with my mouth, so I'm also the voice of a lot of characters.
So your mouth is like in a...
No, not on this one. I would have loved it. That would have been fun. If I could vocalize the transformation sounds,
Uh-huh.
that would have been awesome.
So what would be an example?
Oh, so I'm the fish in Pinocchio. I'm Auntie in Honey Shrunk the Kids. I'm Herbie in Herbie Fully Loaded. I'm actually the dragon in Shrek.
Oh, okay.
So what I've done in the past is I take non-dialogue and give it a personality. And it's interesting. I mean, I listen to a lot of stuff from Cirque du Soleil. They go, oh, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's gibberish. It's Cirque language. But I take that same approach to what I do with creatures. So, for instance, I think something similar. So when I go to Home Depot, everybody really wonders what I'm doing. Because I'll go in and I'll go like... I'll just do stuff and I'll grab like a bowl and, oh, hey, look, it's a light thing. You put it on a light and I'll go, oh. Also do stuff like that. And all of a sudden people go, okay, this guy's weird. But Home Depot is one of my favorite places for props.
Yeah, but okay, let's say you have a regular Home Depot you go to. So they go, oh, it's Scott, he's doing his thing.
We went to, I did a movie years ago called Kill Bill.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get the sword rings. So I found a Unistrut place. And there's all these construction guys there. And this is like a 6-8 foot, of like metal. So I'm hitting the metal and I'm twirling it around to get the...
Yeah.
And they're all looking at me, oh, I think this one rings better than that one. And I'm using gloves and they're just looking at me like, what the heck is this guy doing? But that's how we do it.
That's crazy because I usually think it's like, okay, just get the sword and just make the sound.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things I love about what we do is we get educated. I worked on The Last Samurai.
Yeah.
So I understood samurai swords. And samurai swords actually don't ring at all because they're folded metal.
Yeah.
So I could really nerd out on this stuff. But you start learning, like, what's a broadsword? What is a saber? What is a samurai sword? So a lot of times I will have to go to my directors, do you want what's real? Or do you want what's perceived emotionally? Yeah. And I've done I've heard both. Sometimes they go, it's just got to be cool. So whether it's guns, weapons, there's a pistol out there called the Desert Eagle.
Yeah.
It is the largest, biggest. It sounds like a giant rifle, and it's just a gun. It's a pistol.
Yeah.
So that's ridiculous. That was like a great gun that actually I used for Hellboy 2, and other sounds.
Yeah, Hellboy's got the big gun.
He's got the big gun.
Yeah.
And we did another one where we recorded NASCARs for Herbie, and what we found is if we have the mic not panning it, but actually going the other way, it goes. It sounded more like weapon bullets or lasers. Guess what? We put that in the sound of weapons. NASCAR buys. So what's interesting is you take things you hear, even as silly as a bathroom in a jet in an airplane. It doesn't sound like a normal bathroom. I could take that and use it for a tornado, or for some giant water explosion. So there's a lot of things. So when I'm listening to everything around me, which I'm constantly doing, I go, oh, that could be good for ... Yeah.
So when you're describing like weapons and all that, because I know there's always like different areas where people are hardcore into, like, let's say the sound of a car engine or the sound of like certain, let's say the Desert Eagle. So like, oh, that's a Desert Eagle, that's a MP5, or that's it's a racing car. So like some people just know like the sound.
Because weapons at a distance sounds like firecrackers. They're just very snappy.
Yeah.
Because someone will go, what was that? Was that a firecracker? Was that a gun? I don't know. Unless you're really close to it. So we really tried to get that being exactly the way it is. I worked on heat. We wanted to make sure the guns, when they shot it with blanks, the area had a wonderful echo. And Michael Mann really liked that sound. So we ended up combining that with the original sounds. And then utilize that kind of sound, and then basically spatialized it and made it bigger. So there's all these really great things that you find. I needed on Pacific Rim, which I used a bunch of these sounds, Transformers. I went down to Long Beach and dropped giant cargo containers.
So like with the crane and all that?
Yeah. Yeah, the guys were great, and we started just dropping it a little bit, just.
Yeah.
And then we dropped it. We brought it like 8 feet up and just dropped the whole cargo container. And then to make it even crazier, we took one cargo container and dropped it on the other.
Is there footage of this?
Yes, somewhere. And the sound was amazing. So occasionally ended up using some of those sounds for some of the punches and some of the things later on when they start become bigger.
Yeah.
Because we needed to show the progress of the Autobots, especially our heroes, as they progressed. Mm-hmm. And they progressed in, I think, 3 or 4 stages, where they were like worker bees. Mm-hmm. And then it started growing and growing and growing. So you can make things just louder, because people have a volume knob at home. And in the theater we can get by with some things. I needed to have a different texture, something bigger, bigger, bigger. So now when they're hitting, it's got to be something just really big. So looking at all of those attributes, and when they fall, when they land, they're like, oh, that's badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Like, who would have thought, like, how did you even come up with that idea? Like, let's use cargos to make that sound.
And you know what it is? I think it comes from the music side of me. Mm-hmm. If I, let's say, write a thing for violins or a piano piece or even a guitar piece, and I want you to be sad, or I want it to feel like love, there's an emotion. I can't tell you what the notes are, but there's a feeling that when you play it, you know it. You're in the pocket, as I call it.
Yeah.
Well, when we do sound design, it's the same thing. If I go boom, and you go, ooh, yes, I get that experience of when I was young and even old. I need that audience to go, yes, that's exactly right. In contrary to that, I did a movie called American Beauty.
They wanted me to know that there was no reason to be afraid.
So when I interviewed for it, Sam, we first met. He looked at my resume and went, I'm not sure you'd be a right fit for this show because you do big, loud, crazy stuff. And I said, well, think of me as a musician. Instead of doing just heavy metal, I could do minimalistic jazz. And I literally went through the whole script and described what we could do. And what I really recommended is a negative space, because I think very visually, I think in colors. So everything to me kind of goes there. And I said, it's not about what I do, it's what I don't do. And really defining negative space in that movie is what's going to make the sound of the movie. And then 10 minutes later, got the movie. He hired me and we did it. So it was fun.
Oh man, yeah, American Beauty. So that, okay, let's say that scene it was a paper bag, right? Just you had to like create that sound too, or
yeah, but a lot of times the paper bag didn't have a sound. Again, it was about, first of all, you got to start with the actors. The actors were wonderful. The pacing, Kevin Spacey, just a wonderful actor, and to hear the pauses they have. It's not being scared to have to put stuff in. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it was, like we did the basketball game, and it was really loud, and we got it really, really, really loud. And then we cut to the actress, and she's like, Annette Bening, and she's just like, quiet. And we're not quiet, we're talking about no sound. What's also interesting is when you go to no sound in a theater, people hear themselves breathe.
Yeah.
And it's very uncomfortable. They're like, oh my God, people can hear me. And all of a sudden, psychologically, it's a very powerful sound, especially when before it was loud. So in every movie that I do, including Transformers 1, it's not about sound. To me, it's about phrasing. The music does it, and I think the sound design and the mix needs to do it. First thing I understand is, where are my down moments? Because the up moments could be a whole bunch, especially in battles. Where do I want to go? Up, down. So at one point in Transformers, in the last battle, there's the battle between Optimus Prime and Megatron. Basically, right before they transform is a big moment. And it's almost operatic. That D16 is turning into Megatron, and Optimus is falling inside, wounded or dead, to become Optimus Prime. At that point, I went to the director, we need an opus. If the composer could be an opus, we should do no sound effects. It should just let the music play. Because there's another part also where D16 takes the enemy and literally rips him in half. And I'm wondering, I could play it and I can do the literal, but it'd be so much more powerful if we go no effects. Just go with an operatic music and just see the visual of it.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought that was more powerful.
Wow.
And we had so many battles before. To do another one would have taken away that moment. So it's not just about where we put sound, because part of my job is to understand how all the parts play, because not in my sound design, but I'm in charge of Foley, dialogue, ADR, my whole crew. I hire everybody, we all focus on something, and then at the mix, I kind of come up with a style, and then the mixers between myself and the director hopefully work on that style.
Wow, so there's a lot of just trying to balance things out, adding things in, but then taking away things so that certain areas would be more impactful.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so usually like I'm thinking like, let's make all the sound. That would make like a sound designer happy, right? But
but sound design needs to phrase like music. It's like when if actors talk like this and they keep talking like this, they never really proceed, and they change the pitch and they change volume. It just feels monotone. It feels weird. So if I go so I'm building little musical motif phrases in my head, and then I'm hearing what the composers do, and most times we match, and sometimes we don't. Like I'll think we're gonna end the phrase ba ba da ba do, and we find out the music goes longer.
Yeah.
And I'll go, oh, okay. So now I need to figure out how to keep up a certain amount of energy so that we're both phrasing down at the same time.
So is there anything in this movie, Transformers 1, where that surprised you in terms of, because it's a bunch of robots fighting, but something like, oh, this is like the most organic way to make this sound?
There's nothing organic in this movie. And you know what's and it was fun is the show before this was Pinocchio, where everything was organic. It was all about being organic. What was interesting about Transformers 1 is everything had to feel synthetic and non-worldly, because there's no human Earth-based influence. This isn't, they're not on Earth yet. They're in a world called Cybertron. So always the interesting part is, how do we, with sound, bring something new, but something recognizable? The vehicles were always a challenge, and that was just manipulating Dopplers. So we were doing a lot of Dopplering, and we just spent a lot of time, my crew and I, and to just try to make that feel like something whooshed by you. Mm-hmm. And the other part, which is fun about this, there are creatures called the Quintessence.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Now, the Quintessence really only show up for like one scene or a couple scenes, and then at the end, sort of. But their presence has to be known, has to be felt. That was the first thing I worked on, actually. So I had this idea that instead of doing a ship just rumble coming by, I went and a giant horn, and it announced itself like, I'm badass. And that's sort of what needed to happen. The director went, wow, didn't expect that. And same thing. So the Quintessence and the ships needed to have a creaturey, threatened feel. And, everything we're doing is tension and release. So you build the tension, and you go, I in my head, I wanted the kid to grab his mom's leg, just for a second. Like, is this okay? And so that threat, that sound, was sort of representative of what the whole movie's about. So even though they weren't seen, they had to be felt.
Oh, yeah. And I want to go back to the, so your role in the 80s, what was that like?
Okay, there were no computers.
Yeah.
It was it was a strange time. We were going from tape to tape transfers in sync.
Yeah.
We had a library to choose from on 1/4-inch tape, and we had to transfer that to 24-track tape. So a lot of the design and a lot of things you can do were minimal at best. Mm-hmm. A lot of times when I started, it was synthesizers. Again, synthesizers, vocoders. Walter Murch took sounds that were interesting, sometimes organic, and would use them in really, really creative ways. Like the fan blade of the ceiling turned into a helicopter. that's really kind of how you use sound. Ben Burt created amazing sounds that were just on their own were iconic sounds that everybody in the world knows. R2D2 and
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know, and all the ships in Star Wars. You know,
Yeah, very iconic.
the X-wings and all that. Yeah. So that's great. So to me, when I heard that as a high school kid, I was like, oh, I would love to do that. I don't know how. I don't know anything about how that would happen. But as I went to a music school called Berklee College of Music, and while there, even though I was into, as a musician, more pop music, I kept having a leaning towards film scoring because I loved when you had a contrabass going and the strings doing minor seconds or tensions on string runs. It made me see things in my head. That's what made me go into film.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, ooh, how do I do that? How do I get that feeling? Ooh, tension. And early on, I did all the Oliver Stone films, and one of them that I did was Heaven and Earth. And we were basically torturing this girl. And I had this whole idea of, and I used a combination of Asian instruments, as well as when they were torturing her, I also used animals of slaughter, because they looked at her psychologically as a slaughter person. They didn't care. She wasn't real. She was an animal in their eyes. So, and the same thing as one of my favorite lines in that movie was, and then the dragons came. Because she was in the field, she'd never seen helicopters. So all of a sudden the helicopters come in, so I added a little bit of a feel of a kind of a dragon to go with So it's all about taking emotions, or taking sounds and just having an emotional reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we do it, it's a feel thing.
So you just gotta feel it. But so many things, right? Like there's so many items you can use.
You become an audio photographer and you
Yeah.
become an audio psychologist. I'm constantly listening to things and going, ooh, I could use that one day.
Yeah.
And
do you like just remember like, oh, this item would make this sound, and
Yeah.
it's like you have like kind of like an encyclopedic audio knowledge.
You have stuff, and then my library is massive. It's like, I think I got 6 or 7 million sounds, and I would then start playing word games of the way I know, and I'll say, dragon helicopter.
Yeah.
A lot of times the design's not there.
Yeah.
But I'll look at a helicopter and hear a 5-blade, no. A little bell helicopter, no. Ooh, I like that. Cliffhanger, the blades were moving so much that I ended up using drums. So I've used drums a lot. So I would literally watch the screen and play in the helicopter wops because they were all slow-mo. And they're wop, 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 wop. And I had all these streamers that could stream timing changes. Mm-hmm. And the other time I used it was on True Lies, where I didn't want the sound of Harry the Phalanx gun to go. It's just boring to me. So I built a combination of AK-47s and other weapons and put them on drum pads, and I did paradiddles. And I had James Cameron, I said, do you like me to accent this way or this way? He thought it was the craziest thing. And I'm like, so he got a kick out of it.
Yeah, that's so many inventive ways. I think that's why, so just hearing it just sounds cool, And,
Yeah.
And are you telling the story? I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea.
There's many, many nights and days I'll go with, I'm never going to work again. Oh my God, I suck. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then one day, it's usually when I wake up. I go, I have an idea. And then I go down that idea and I go, oh, that's it. That's or no. But usually I find that, when I'm on a project that's hard, I kind of shut everything out. Mm-hmm. So I go in this kind of Zen mode. And sometimes I don't talk to people. I don't communicate. I just kind of go into this place that allows me to be 100%. Really hard to get there, and hard to get out, of it.
So what was it? Let's say you do that. Like, where would you be when you want to be like 100%?
No, I'm usually in here or in my other studio.
Yeah.
But what happens is, like, I have conversations with people, that can last literally years. Because we won't see each other. We'll see each other at the trade show or we'll talk. So sometimes people know me. Like I'll walk the hallways, but I'm not there. People go, "Hey Scott, can I ask you about something?" And I'll be like, and then they go, "Oh yeah, he's not here." I'm walking because I have to physically move my body.
Yeah.
What happens is I'm just really focused on the show.
Yeah.
And to get that to that place. And again, I think it's got to be like songwriting, where you're just that's where you are mentally. So even when you go home, I'm still in my head. I'm still editing, designing, and going no, yeah, no, no. I think that's what it takes to be really good, or not get killed. Because there's a lot of pressure. There's directors, there's producers, there's picture editors. They all have opinions.
Yeah.
And then, like a session musician, because I'm always blown away by these guys, they could go in and just, pick up a different instrument, pick up a thing, boop, I can play whatever you want. Oh, the drummer, you want a different snare? Okay, pop the snare in. They just, I've got to be that. So when they're in the room, and they were in the room every 2 weeks for Transformers. So they go, "Oh, can we hear this?" Like, sure. And I'd be going to my crew here like, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? Tension. So, but like a session player, you learn how to pivot. I think I've been doing this long enough now that I just, at my worst, I can do good, and my best, I can do very good.
Yeah.
I just sort of know the tricks.
Yeah.
I could do old tricks if I need to, but for this show and for the last several shows, I've been having to do things we haven't done before, and that just takes a lot of mental focus.
Mm-hmm. Is there like what was like the most challenging, like, from all your projects? There's one like that sticks out to you?
No. I mean, there's the first movie I ever did, which I was just purely terrified, because it was the first. I think every movie, I think the challenging part of every movie is learning the director, learning what they like, learning what they don't like. So I'm never going to ask a director what they want. And I learned this from Oliver Stone. And I said, "What do you want?" And I was young. and he goes, "Scott, if I knew what I wanted, I don't need you. I need you to tell me what I need."
Yeah.
So here I am, a puppy. and here's this oversized guy who's an amazing director going there. And so I'm the kind of sound soup that comes in with a bag of tricks and with lots of ideas. Then it's up to me to listen to the director, kind of get a feel. Do they like sound? Do they want big sound? Really the parameters. And then I recommend things. And I find most of them love it because they have 1,000, every day, 1,000 things to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And my job on the audio is to only give them 1 or 2 decisions.
Yeah.
And if I could present them with options and ideas, they love it. Their life becomes easier. And then they look at you as, "Oh my God, you're making my life easier."
Yeah.
Creatively. And that's the goal.
Okay, let's pretend I'm a director. The movie, let's say it's a story of a family, post-apocalyptic future.
Actually, let me give you a different story.
Okay.
So, when I meet a director for the first time, I have 10 seconds. At most.
Okay.
So, if I go into an interview and we're not clicking, because I tend to be a high-energy guy.
Yeah.
So I worked with a guy, Curtis Hanson. Curtis did LA Confidential. And we were doing Lucky You. So usually it's, "Hey, how you doing?" And I read the room, and I just felt this really relaxed peace. So I went, "Hey, Curtis, how's it going?" So I started speaking like this. And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So the whole time we were talking, everything was slower and quieter. "Scott, I'm thinking this way." "Okay, great." So we're talking, and the whole time on the movie, I had to bring myself there. If I did that with Guillermo, he'd ask what was wrong with me. Because Guillermo wants that high energy.
Oh, yeah.
And Guillermo and I just connect because we're similar types, similar energy, similar taste. But with Curtis, it was all about Vegas. So I had to learn. This is the part also I love about what I do is I have what I call career day. So I have to do a movie about poker players. And there was somebody on the movie before me, and they let that person go because they weren't capturing the sound. So I said, "Well, let me go to Vegas and let me record Vegas." And I got access to Binions and Bellagio. They shut the music off. I got a chance to record when nobody knew I was recording. I had microphones in my sleeves. I had earbuds that looked like headphones. They were actually microphones. And I sat at tables recording. So I said, well, I noticed this thing called chipping. I never even knew it existed. And these people are clacking. It sounds like crickets at all the tables. I was able to do that. Then I started listening to the pros, not the amateurs, and they flick the cards. They snap them. And then I said, look, I now hear, I have a vocabulary in my head of what professional poker players play in Vegas. And I was in Bobby's room at the Bellagio, and there was $1 million on the table. It was a private. And just listening and watching. So we hired pro players to come down and record for us. I said, I need the sound. And we did a mock game for 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
I said, we could do a game with just cards. Now, I want you guys to chip. Do all the chipping. Recorded all of that. I have thousands and thousands of poker sounds. That's the attention of detail. So we have to learn. Recorded a submarine. Recorded and found out that it's not what I thought. So when we recorded the submarine, it was incredibly boring sounding. But so that's the problem. It's like if I recorded what was real, people wouldn't buy it.
Huh.
So then I said, okay, how do I do this? So to create a submarine, I spent a special mic on my air conditioner with the big blade going.
Yeah.
That was the engine.
Wow. That's.
I used in a hot tub the little twirling jets. I took an underwater mic. That's their torpedo.
So wait, what was the real sound like? Just.
Well, okay. So when I went in, the first thing, oh, you want to hear the conning tower? The con tower. I said, great. They have a winch motor on top and bottom. It goes. Beep, beep. Just a normal winch motor. The doors are all rubber coated, so they make no sound. They turned the engine on, a diesel sub, and it just sounded like somebody did a generator in your backyard.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. It wasn't what I expected. So now, in true Hollywood fashion,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
yeah, I've got to make the sound of what I feel emotionally it should be, and and what I feel the audience is expecting.
Yeah. Unless you have a director that wants, no, I want that realistic sound. I want the audience to know this is what a real submarine sounds like.
But you know what's interesting? When I did True Lies, the Harry Jet,
Yeah.
James said to me, I want the Harry Jet. I know what it is. I want the Harry Jet. I said, okay. So I recorded a Harry Jet and made him a Harry Jet. It was so boring. And I said, so I'm going to do another version. There was no Harry Jet in it, but there was a lot of other sounds. And I built, and so I played it for him, and I said, here's the Harrier Jet. And he went, oh, yep, great. That's Harrier Jet. I said, can I give you another option? I played with that. Ooh, I like that better. He never asked. I never told.
Wow.
But there was no Harrier Jet. It was like, I had a Saturn rocket in there. I had all sorts of jets. I took this is called a dimension light beam, which I used a little bit. And as I moved my hand over it, I could change the way the EQ and the way the wings were flying. So Schwarzenegger's going sideways.
Yeah.
I would just move that, and and Jim saw that.
That's crazy.
He just
how,
thought that was.
Yeah, because you had options where here's the real sound. So sometimes people be like,
I can sculpt it. I can put my hands on it.
Yeah.
And touch it.
And then just expand on it and make it better.
So that's the thing is I don't know. I mean, I take things. I learn about technology, and I figure, is there any way, for me to use it? I mean, when I saw Jimmy Page use a bow on his guitar, now all of a sudden, what else can I bow? Ooh, I could bow all sorts of metal things and interesting things. So that's how we kind of come up with ideas.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know if there's anything you can show off, like any demo. It doesn't have to be Transformers 1. It could be like just anything that you can just show off. Because, like, for example, this, you're showing off, like, just making sounds, testing things out. Anything else, like, I don't know, like, if you can test this out?
I'm not set up for it, unfortunately. I wish I was, but I can't. But, it's something that we're constantly manipulating, thinking. Again, we have massive libraries.
Yeah.
And, like, we'll hear something, we'll hear, like, a parrot. Take a parrot, slow it down, manipulate it, and now you got a dinosaur. So there's so many ways, and you know, we all network and talk. Some people keep those cards pretty close. You know, I got friends who say, "Well, how'd you do that?" And they'll like just smile at me.
It's like, no,
They're not
no,
going to share.
Secret.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it is, and you know, and that's what's really the fun part about it is the journey.
Yeah.
And it can be maddening, and more times you're wrong than right. But the great thing about making mistakes or being wrong is that it helps you if given the time to get it right.
Yeah.
So my best stuff is when I have a lot of time. So for the transformations, I did a lot of things wrong until I got it right. If I have to get it right really quickly, then I have other tricks. The other thing I did actually, which I want to say within Transformers 1, which is fun. This is an origin. It's a prequel. So at the very end, we've got Optimus Prime running and all the Autobots behind him. And he's talking about to the Quintessence, if you want to attack us, blah, 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 take us all on. Anyway, he jumps up and transforms. At that point, I actually went back to the 1980s transformation sound. Literally. Because I wanted to pay homage.
Yeah.
Because that is a prequel to what the 1980s was. So, for fun, for any of the, you know, audio geeks out there, that is just a cleaned up version of the 1980s sound.
Yeah, that's it's people love that.
It's
sound.
the tip of my hat, you know.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, it has to be.
That is it with the interview, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Transformers 1, check it out.
It's a great story. It's got a lot of heart to it. It's really different than the other Transformer movies in the past. So watch it, enjoy it. Have a good time.
All right, see you guys.